What's good, boys? So, I was just chilling and I thought about what the perfect NBA athletic body frame would look like, so I decided to make this video. Before we get into the video, if y'all do enjoy, do like, comment, and subscribe. I am new to YouTube, so this does help out a lot. Now, without further ado, let's get into the video. Before we begin our search for players, we need to split up athleticism into different categories, so we can find the best players to match those categories. I am going to split this up in these categories because I feel like this is what defines athleticism and body frame. You have speed. When talking about speed, however, you have to consider two things. Top speed, meaning the fastest you could operate, and acceleration, meaning how fast you could get to your maximum potential pace of operation. Next, you have length, which is pretty self-explanatory. It's a player's height. After that, you have width, which is also pretty self-explanatory. It's a player's wingspan. Then you have power, which is the ability to generate maximum force. Vertical is the highest point that an athlete can touch. Stamina, though often forgotten, is just as important. Stamina is the ability to sustain prolonged physical effort. And finally, you have balance, which has multiple definitions, but for the purpose of this video, we will say that balance is the ability to stay upright or stay in control of body movement. Final point before getting into building the player. We're only going to be using players with reliable stats, meaning though Wilt Chamberlain claims to have a vertical of 48 inches and bench press 500 pounds, there simply isn't enough proof. So for a player to be considered here, he needs to have real hard evidence to justify his inclusion. Now we will start off with speed. Since there are two categories of speed, we need to find a player who has a high top speed as well as a fast acceleration. Meaning we need a player that also needs to get to a high top speed fast. When talking about speed, you think about guards because they're usually nimble players who uses their speed to create shots or score. And you would be correct. The fastest player ever recorded in the NBA Draft Combine would be Cookie Belcher, who ran the three-quarter sprints at a staggering 2.91 seconds, which is incredibly impressive. But we are building the most athletic player in the NBA, and he's never played in the NBA, only in Europe. Even if he made it into the NBA, his speed is nowhere fast enough to justify him as the fastest player of all time. In fact, if you do the math, he only ran around 17.6 miles per hour. Though that is fast, compared to the highest top speed ever reached, it's nothing. According to the NBA, Russell Westbrook reached a top speed of 21.6 miles per hour when driving to the rim, which is the highest speed ever recorded on the court, which would technically make him the speed king. But it's not that simple. I found this dude on Facebook who claimed that John Wall achieved the top speed of 24.6 miles per hour during his track days, which would make him the fastest player ever. But unfortunately, I couldn't find hard evidence for that. Wizards coach Scott Brooks claimed that John Wall could run from basket to basket in just 2.5 seconds. Which, if we do the math, means he needs to achieve a top speed of at least 25.68 miles per hour, which would back him into making him the fastest player in NBA history. He also raced the Olympian and came a close second without any of the times ever being recorded. With all that being said, and my original point of saying you need hard evidence, I'm going to take Westbrook for this one. You can take John Wall and you wouldn't be wrong, but due to the lack of evidence, I'm going to take Westbrook. Other honorable mentions includes players like Nate Robinson, Allen Iverson, De'Aaron Fox, and LeBron James. Next, we'll do vertical. Speed, vertical, and power are all components of explosiveness. Vertical is quite straightforward, and it may surprise you. Now, there are rumors going around that Wilt Chamberlain had a vertical of 48 inches, however, there is very little evidence to support that, just like all other Wilt Chamberlain achievements, meaning he cannot be considered. His airness, Michael Jordan's ability is undisputed, but the exact height has always been a question. A study from his days in Chapel Hill with the North Carolina Tar Heels had Jordan's vertical listed at 45.76 inches, or just a couple of inches shy of 4 feet. In 1984, while still playing at Carolina, Jordan reportedly had his vertical leap measured during his time with the Olympic basketball team. According to those involved, Jordan soared to a height of 48 inches. It was then, and still is today, considered to be one of the highest vertical leaps. Another player that needs to be brought up is Dr. Duncanstein, aka Darrell Griffith. For those of you who don't know who Darrell Griffith is, he was a second overall pick from the Utah Jazz in the 1980-81 season, where he won the NBA Rookie of the Year award. From there on, he enjoyed a stellar career until his sixth season, where he suffered a foot injury, which permanently hurt his leaping ability and forced him to eventually retire at the age of only 32. However, during his prime years, he was known as Dr. Duncanstein, and, well, there is good reason for that. Darrell Griffith is on record for having a vertical jump of also 48 inches, which matches Michael Jordan. So who do we go for here? Well, let's look at the facts. Jordan had a debated vertical of either 46 or 48 inches. Many sources claim different things. For example, the Canadian Olympic website lists his vertical jump at an incredible 46 inches. However, I do believe the Team USA guys who claim that Jordan had a vertical of 48 inches. Because why would they lie? In fact, if anything, if they were to lie, they'd probably claim that it was lower to make themselves feel better. However, I was looking through when Darrell Griffith recorded his vertical jump and this came up. This book claims that Griffith had a vertical of 48 inches in high school, and similar to Jordan, was also tested during a Team USA event. I'm sorry, but I'm going to take a high school kid who jumped 48 inches over a college dude who did the same. One is just more impressive. So for vertical, I'm going with Darrell Griffith. Next, you have power. The power is hard to measure as it simply does not mean strength. It means the ability to generate maximum force. This is pretty simple, so I'm not even going to waste your time. Unlike other categories where there was a debate, power is uncontested. It's Shaq. If you say anything else, you're wrong. There is a reason Shaq is the most dominant player in NBA history, because of his ability to back down any defender and dunk on anybody in the paint in an era of tougher defense. Though Shaq is not the only player to break a backboard, he's often given the credit of forcing the league to redesign the backboard. Next, we move on to size, which is the department of length and width. Though there has been a lot of tall players in the NBA, nobody surpasses the Romanian tower that was George Muresan. If you ever played 2K My Team, you know who this dude is. He was a staggering 7 feet and 7 inches tall, which is 1 inch taller than several other players who stood at 7'6", making him the tallest player ever. When thinking about wingspan, you would assume the tallest player in the NBA would also have the longest wingspan. Well, you would almost be right. Manute Bol is one of those players who stood at 7 foot and 6 inches tall, but had a godly wingspan of 8 feet and 6 inches. This helped him get 2,086 blocks in a career that only consisted of 624 games, averaging 18.7 minutes, meaning dude was averaging 2.3 blocks per game for his career. Now on to stamina. There are two contenders for players with the best stamina. The first one being CJ McCollum, who is leading the league in miles per game for this season and the past 3 seasons as well. During this season, CJ was covering 2.75 miles per game. The second contender is Allen Iverson. If looked at the most minutes played per game for a whole career, only one person from what we traditionally consider the modern NBA makes it, and that is Allen Iverson. Though his miles per game stats does not exist, he was definitely one of the highest in the league due to him constantly being the primary ball handler in his team. Out of both these players, I think AI takes it for me. Though CJ's miles per game is impressive, large part of his movement is off ball, as his role in his team requires him to be more of a shooter rather than the primary ball handler, though he does take that role from time to time. AI's minutes per game is much more impressive due to the fact that he was the primary ball handler and played in an era where defense was much more aggressive on him, meaning he was constantly getting banged up by players who were almost always bigger than him. Due to this, I'm stealing AI's stamina. Now on to the final point of balance. Balance is hard to measure as there is no true statistic to show a player's balance. However, if we look at how we originally defined balance, which is the ability to stay upright or stay in control of body movement, I think Michael Jordan takes the cake. Though Jordan's vertical is impressive, what's even more impressive is his ability to control his movement in air. His hang time was insane. In fact, he was recorded as having the longest time spent in the air, which is 0.92 seconds. His incredible hang time allowed him to make acrobatic shots which no one else could hit. Don't believe me? Just listen to Magic Johnson talk about it.
Now this is the greatest shot I've seen. He came down the right side, took off. David Robinson took off. And he said, okay, I'm gonna just sit here in the air. Because I know David Robinson is gonna go down. So David Robinson went to the ground. He 360, tongue moving, and dunked it.
So there we go. This is what the perfect NBA player's body and athleticism would look like. How good would this player be? Well, it depends on his skill set. Just because you have the athletic ability to be great does not mean you'll always end up great. Look at guys like Andrew Wiggins and Aaron Gordon. Though they are historically athletic and are good players, neither are great. Also, you may have noticed that players that usually come to our mind when we think about freaks of nature like LeBron and Giannis fail to make it onto here. Well, the simple explanation for that would be that they're good at everything, but not necessarily great at one particular thing. With all that being said, thanks for watching the video. If you did enjoy, like and subscribe and check out my other videos as well.